Question, did you bring up at the time the topic of his wife, Melania, in one of those conversations with Mr. Trump? Answer, I did. Question, what did you say in substance to him? Answer, I said to him, and how's things going to go with upstairs? Question, were you concerned about that? Answer, I was. Question, and what, if anything, did he say to you about that? Answer, don't worry, he goes. He goes, how long do you think I will be on the market for? Not long. Question, what did you understand that to mean? Answer, he wasn't thinking about Melania. This was all about the campaign. Few things, Nicole. Women will hate me. Guys may think it's cool. I'm just going to leave that where it lies. But this, what I want you to do is push it out as long as you can, get past the election. If I win, it has no relevance, I'll be president. If I lose, I don't even care. So that means this explains why they're not paying Stormy Daniels. And in fact, them not paying Stormy Daniels almost results in them losing control of this and Stormy Daniels telling her story to ABC News. They have to scramble. Michael Cohen pays himself because they've almost lost it because they've been stringing it out. They want to string it out past the election and then never pay her at all. Right. But then the question about his wife, aren't you worried about your wife, what she will think? Michael Cohen is describing a conversation with Donald Trump in which he's trying to elicit, is there a reason for us to suppress this story other than the campaign? And Trump effectively says, no, I don't care if she knows. I don't care if she's mad. How long do you think I'll be on the market for? Not long.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not the first person to testify to Trump's singular concern with his campaign. And the other investigator and prosecutors that had access to David Pecker's unfiltered, unlimited testimony was the Southern District of New York, and they found the same election crime to have taken place. They simply decided not to charge Trump and name him individual one and describe his role as, quote, directing Michael Cohen. So the facts are not in dispute by the other investigators that looked at this. No one who's come before this jury has testified to any motive other than the campaign. And the real crisis, the thing that makes the Stormy Daniels payment different, in addition to the crimes that were committed in the fraudulent business records, is that this is the one that happens in the compressed time period, right? And Karen McDougal does come out. It comes out the Monday before the election. And you've got all those conversations where Trump is telling Hope Hicks what to do. Hope Hicks says, no, I'm going to deny. I mean, they are hyper aware of the political damage. And none of the witnesses that have come through have said anything about Trump being scared of Melania or worried about Melania. I had a source that was inside the debate prep when Access Hollywood tape dropped. And he told me he went upstairs with Trump. And Melania was very distraught. Now, no one knows anything about anyone's marriage that isn't in that marriage, so I have no idea what
Your source was in the room with Melania?
Was in the room for debate prep and then went up. I don't think Trump went upstairs alone. I don't think he was the only one. I think debate prep ended, and a subset of that group went upstairs to the residence to deal with the statement, to deal with Melania. I mean, I think a group of them came from, I don't think Reince Priebus went because his vote was to dump Trump from the ticket and see if they could switcheroo with Mr. Mike Pence. But I think a few of them went upstairs from debate prep, which was in Trump Tower, up to the residence. Melania was reportedly crying. But again, we don't know why she's crying. Was she mortified? Did she know? Was she mad at him for getting out? I mean, who knows? But his concerns about her were a very distant second to his political concerns about being what he's always afraid of being, a loser.
Right. Chris, at the opening statements, Trump's defense counsel did suggest that the reason that Trump was paying this hush money, or the reason that this response to Stormy Daniels rolled out some of the way that it did, despite the parts that they deny, is because he did what anybody would have done. Right. He was trying to avoid embarrassment, with the implication being that he was trying to avoid the embarrassment to his family on this. It does seem to be repeatedly rebutted by multiple witnesses in this case.
It does. And one thing that is a little unclear to me, I've referenced this before, the John Edwards case, in which they effectively used that as defense, right? That when he was under trial, federal trial, for, again, essentially campaign finance violations for paying off hush money, that it was fundamentally about protecting his wife, who you might remember at the time was cancer-stricken, and I think had a much more plausible case that was the case. What I don't actually understand is what the standard is for the jury on this aspect of the crime. Meaning, like, they clearly falsified business records, right? I mean, there clearly was a hush money payment. There was clearly, like, there's a huge amount of paper transaction. The motive to it, we have multiple witnesses saying it was about the campaign and not Melania. But there's not the same kind of, I mean, there's there's stuff in the evidentiary record.
But no bank is going to have anything
Exactly.
written
There's not a
down
bank
about
statement that says like
Yes.
about the campaign, right?
Yes.
So, and I guess my question is how much whatever fuzziness a juror might feel about whether that's as firmly established as other things affects whether you can find.
Well, Katie,
them
let me
guilty.
put that to you because right, we all are now familiar with these intricacies of New York law. That the reason this is a felony
Right.
and not a misdemeanor, you can be charged with misdemeanor falsification of business records. You're charged with a felony falsification of business records when it is used to commit or conceal the commission of another crime. But you don't have to prove the crime
Correct.
beyond a reasonable doubt. So if the crime is influencing
That's
the
my
election,
question,
it's
yes.
an unfair, it's an illegal campaign expenditure. They don't. What is the standard? It doesn't have to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
No. So it's a great question because I think a lot of people went into today's testimony, if you're rooting for the prosecution, hoping to have the clarity from Michael Cohen's testimony. So the underlying misdemeanors of falsification of the business records is the layup, as Chris says. But for what purpose? Because that's what elevates it or punts it up to the felony. That secondary offense, the subject offense of why would you want to falsify those business records, you don't have to prove that offense beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable
Do you
doubt.
just have to point and say this is what we think it is?
Exactly. And that is why you're hearing the campaign component so heavily here. You're not hearing as much the tax side of it. You're hearing the campaign, because that is the theory that the prosecution got up in opening and said is what the crime is.
That standard seems to me, watching this all develop, to matter a lot, right? Because I do think if you were to ask me how much of they have established to me beyond a reasonable doubt so far.
The misdemeanors.
Yeah, like
Yes.
this was clearly fraudulent. They clearly covered up this thing. That's clear. I think they have also established that it was for the campaign, but have they established it, in my mind, to the same level of rock solid beyond, as that other thing? I would probably say no so far, but they don't
need
have
to.
to.
But
That's
they don't
the
need
key.
to.
But
Right.
having the testimony from Cohen saying that Trump was in the room when they talked about the falsification gets you there.
Right.
And
That's
it
why that
doesn't
was so
have to
important.
be, these things, it can be both. That's the most important part. The jurors can think he did it for both reasons. And as long as the campaign is one of them, and certainly if it's the dominant one, then the case is made. So, but they don't have to completely exclude some sort of motivation involving his wife. However, Michael, the evidence, this is really important. The evidence so far has excluded Melania.
Correct, yes.
Okay?
Right.
Michael Cohen, under oath, in evidence, said he wasn't thinking about Melania. You cannot get a clearer statement than that. Now, this is going to be important. The judge is going to instruct on this. Nothing the Trump lawyers said in the opening is evidence. Everything that the witnesses said
Is evidence.
The defense attorney's cross-examination questions are not evidence. So what the cross-examination questions are going to be is, you lied about that, didn't you? And Cohen's going to go, no. And that you lied about it isn't evidence.
Right, yeah.
They cannot and will not put Donald Trump on the witness stand, who's the only person alive who can present evidence against what Michael Cohen has said. That's how you'd have to present evidence. It has to be Trump saying, I never told him to do it, and I absolutely did not reimburse him. I was paying him to be my lawyer. Trump would have to give you that in direct testimony from the defense. He's not going to. So the likelihood is you're going to go to the jury with nothing but the evidence presented by the prosecution.
You
about
think it's a
this.
0% chance that Trump testifies?
Zero. It always has been. Yeah.